So welcome back. It's been a while since we've done a video, but this is our 93 Land Cruiser in all of her glory. So today we're going to work on dropping the transmission pan, replacing the filter, and then cycling new fluid throughout the system so we flush our transmission. I don't think the filter's probably ever been done on this, so it's 283,000 miles. Might be a good time to do it. A lot of people say that you don't need to do it, but I want to drop the pan, I want to look at the magnets, I want to look and see the status of everything in there to make sure we don't have any badness going on in there. So what I've done basically, right now I've dropped the skid plate from the transmission. There's 4 12mm bolts you'll need to take out, and then you're also going to need to take out the 2 12mm bolts that hold the oil dipstick on. And then you want to separate the oil dipstick so that way the pan can come out without this big long dipstick attached to it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to drain everything that's in the pan, and we're going to measure how much fluid we get out of there, and then we will be back in a little while. Okay, so here's our drain plug. It's a 24mm. We undid it. Looks like we got about 4 quarts out of the pan. So what we'll do is we'll always make sure to put your new crush washer on your drain plug, so that way you don't have any leaks. So I'll put that back on there, and we will go ahead and bolt this back up, and then we're gonna take all the pan bolts out and drop the pan and see what we got inside there. Probably gonna lose about another quart from the filter and all that stuff coming down on us, so we'll see you in a little while. All right, 20 10mm bolts, and here's our pan right here. So you can see there's still quite a bit of fluid in there, and that's because that drain hole is raised a little bit. So that's, you've got about another 3/4 of a quart in there that'll have to drain out as well. And then I can take you down underneath the car and we can show you what it looks like under here. Okay, and there's the valve body and the transmission. There's the filter that we're going to take off next, and we'll replace that bad boy. So be back in a flash. Okay, it looks like we poured out about another quart. So now we've got 5 quarts in our bucket, and these are your little magnets that sit inside here. So you want to make sure to take all these little magnets off and then just clean them off with a rag. And mine are looking pretty good. I don't see any big chunks of metal or anything like that, which is definitely what I wanted to see. So you clean all 4 of those up. There's also one on the end of your drain plug. You can take that out, you need to clean that off. And then we'll wire wheel all this crap off, make it nice and clean, and then we'll get underneath there with the putty and we'll scrape all the stuff off the transmission pan, or off the housing transmission. And then I'm gonna use just a gasket instead of the FPIG or whatever they call this stuff that they use. So don't forget to put these back in, because you don't want to get it all buttoned up and then go to your workbench and see you got 4 magnets laying there and you have to take all of it off again and put them on. So put those back in. So we will return after we get everything all cleaned up. All right, so we got our little filter out here, and be careful, because I was taking this thing off and the gasket kind of sticks to the valve body and it doesn't just fall right off. You have to kind of pull on it. You have to pull on it with a little bit of force too, and boy, when we did that, about half a quart of transmission fluid went everywhere. But if you can see down in the screen, you can see some particulate in there. See those little boogers? So the screen is dirty and it's doing its job. You can also tell it's got, you know, some dirt on it. So we're gonna go ahead, and some people say they don't like to replace these because they look super clean. Some people try to clean them out, but I paid 17 bucks for a new filter and a gasket, so I think that's pretty cheap just to go ahead and, plus you got this cork gasket here that is very hard now. See how brittle and hard that is? So reusing that, probably not such a good idea. Anyway, that's 230,000 mile filter, so, or 283,000 mile filter. We will put the new one on and we'll see how that goes. So old one, new one, you can tell the inside of that screen is quite a bit cleaner. So this new one for me came packaged in like some oil, you know, to keep it from rusting, kind of like your rotors do. So just take some brake clean, spray it on there, and that'll clean that grease off before you put it in. So we'll put this one in and see how it goes. Okay, now we're going to torque the filter pan bolts down. Now these are 77 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds. So okay, we got those 77 inch-pounds, and then when we put the pan back on, we'll torque these bolts down to 61 inch-pounds. Okay, and when we come back next, we'll have all this gasket crap cleaned up, and we'll be putting the pan on. Stay tuned. Oh, another thing that we should probably do is, you can see there's a bunch of that old sealant in these threads. Clean that all off for when you reinstall it. I just use a pair of vice grips to clamp down tight on that, and then put it on the wire wheel and clean up the threads. So, fun stuff. All right, here's our clean pan, magnets installed. Here's our gasket. This gasket has little smaller holes on the tabs, so that way it holds the bolts on, which is pretty nice. Another thing I probably should have showed you at the beginning, I use this tool to help pry this off of the valve body. It's nice because it has a small bend, so you can stick it in like that and kind of pry it up a little bit. Works really well. I didn't have much of a problem at all getting it off. So now we're gonna go ahead and get it installed on the truck, and we'll start flushing all the fluid through. Okay, so the best way that I found to do this is to take a sharp razor and then just to kind of scrape this stuff away from the transmission so you don't get any of that crap in there, and then every once in a while clean off your blade. Just keep doing that all the way through while you got the nice transmission fluid dropping in your face. It's a lot of fun. Now you can see why a lot of people skip pulling the pan and replacing the filter. But now we got the peace of mind of knowing that everything inside the transmission looks good, and it's good for another 280,000 miles, right? Let's hope so. But you've got all that sealant taken off. You want to go ahead and put your pan back in place. And then you'll want to fill your pan back up with the same amount of fluid that you took out with nice clean fluid. Now here's the hose that you're going to disconnect from your cooler, and it's going to go into a bucket, and when we turn on the engine, it's going to cycle, the pump's going to pump fluid out that hose. I wasn't real sure which hose the fluid would come out of, so I went ahead and disconnected both the hoses, and you can see that other one there, and I placed it in a bucket as well. So like I said, you want to make sure to fill up your transmission with fresh fluid, the same amount that you took out. In our case, I believe it was 4 quarts. And you'll want to have a bucket that's got, it's graduated, that you can tell, you know, how much fluid is in there. We just measured out a quart, and then we took a magic marker, a Sharpie marker, and just marked our, 1 quart, 2 quart, 3 quart, 4 quart, and so on. And so what we're going to do here pretty soon is we're going to start the car up, and we're going to pump all that stuff through. So now we got the car running, and you can see all that old dirty fluid is filling up the bucket. There we got 1 quart, 1.5. Now we're at 2 quarts. And like I said, you want to pump out, in our case we put 4 quarts of fresh fluid in, but you only want to pump out about 3. You want to leave a quart in the pan there so it doesn't pump dry and cause any kind of problem. So here at about 3 quarts, we're going to go ahead and I'll tell my son Isaac to stop the car. So I say, okay, stop the car, and he turns it off. And you continue to do that until your fluid starts to change color. So here we just put in 3 more quarts, and we started the car up. Another thing that's a good idea to remember is you'll want to cycle through the gears. So you can see here in the upper left-hand corner, he's cycling through all the gears. That way it opens up all the proper solenoids and all the check valves and everything and all that crazy stuff that's in a transmission that makes it work. You get all that old fluid out of there. So there we're cycling through the gears, and you can tell you don't have to dump it out. You just keep track of where you left off, and just keep filling it up. Another 3 quarts. Then we'll stop it. We'll put 3 more quarts in, and we're cycling through. Now we're starting to get some good looking fluid in there. It's turning red, and that's what we want to see. So we'll go ahead and cycle through one more time here, and then we'll go ahead and fill it back up with 3 more quarts of fluid. That should be pretty close to being full. So we'll button everything back up, and we'll check our level, and if it's good, we'll take it for a drive, and then we'll check it after it's hot. So basically what I'm showing you here is how to check your transmission fluid. I like to check my fluid when the vehicle's running and it's warmed up to operating temperature on nice level ground. Make sure that your fluid level comes up in between those 2 hash marks. I like to give it a little bit more towards the top hash mark. If you're checking it when it's cold, then use the cold hash marks. But it's basically all I'm telling you to do right here. I'm sure you guys already know how to do that. So that's all I got to say about that. Coming up here, I'm just going to show you the type of fluid that I used again. That's that Castrol Transmax. It's been great fluid. I've used it in my 4Runner for the last 1.5 years. It's been great. I've had this stuff running in the Land Cruiser now for probably close to 6 months, and it's done really well. I don't have any shifting problems, so I'm a big fan of the stuff. It's a little pricey, but I think it's well worth it, being that you only have to change it out very rarely. So give it a try. I think you'll like it too. Thanks for watching.